Welcome to Books, Dreams, and Financial Things, where we talk about marriage, blending our family, finances, and our dreams. We hope while sharing our journey, you can relate and learn with us and from us.
Welcome back. I am your host, Renita.
And I am Jermaine. And today we are going to talk about budgeting for the holidays, specifically Christmas in general.
Right. Since that's the holiday where you're buying gifts.
Right.
Well, and birthdays, I guess. But anyway, excuse my voice. I have a head cold and I sound, I don't know, sick.
Okay. So, budgeting for the holidays. You know what? I'm gonna give a few statistics. Something that you probably didn't know, but I read the stuff and it didn't surprise me, but I'm gonna give those statistics out. So according to the World Economic Forum, Americans, as we know, we spend the most during Christmas. This year we're projected to spend over $1 trillion. That's with a T. And Americans will spend $942 average on Christmas gifts. And they're not saying family, that's individual people. $942. And another statistic that made a lot of sense to me. And one in about 5 Americans will go into debt buying Christmas gifts for the holidays. So that's why I think that it's important to speak on actually budgeting for this time in general. And I think that it will be something of great value for people to hear. Obviously, Christmas is right around the corner, so the budgeting aspect of it for this year, there's some things that we're going to talk about that you can actually obviously do, but some of the majority of the stuff I would say starting next year.
Okay, great. For us, I think we went over our budget for the holidays back in October, right? But to be honest, prior to knowing you, there was no budget for Christmas. I mean, I was buying a lot more gifts. At that time, I was buying, obviously, for Keone, my parents, my brother, some friends. Of course, if I was dating somebody, you would have to get stuff for that. And there would be no budget. It'd just be like, okay, the money would come. And every time it came, from probably October to the week before Christmas, I was purchasing things.
Okay. And so like most Americans, obviously we've talked about our budget. Listen on episode 7, it goes into the importance of having a budget. And before I even go to that, before actually talking about a budget for Christmas, but in episode 7, we talk about the importance of having a budget in general. So if you don't have a budget in general, budgeting for the holidays, personally, in my opinion, obviously you could do it, but it's not that wise. So I think listen to episode 7, start budgeting in general, and then, obviously you can, I would say, graduate to budgeting for Christmas.
And that's probably why I didn't have a budget prior, because I didn't have a everyday living budget, So it was like, that's just kind of how I lived my life. I would get money, pay bills, spend the rest. Money, pay bills, spend the rest. So that's how Christmas was. It was just like, instead of spending it on more clothes, I was just spending it on toys or gifts for my family.
Okay. And that's funny because even when I was thinking about the notes and so forth with regards to this podcast in particular, that's what I sort of kind of said. Most people, you have your general expenses, and then the leftover money is pretty much spent on whatever it is that you want to spend it on.
Right.
But in this case, with regards to Christmas in general, I think that having a budget is key. It'll help with regards to everything. So one of the first things that I think is very important that you do is you figure out a dollar amount that you're going to spend during the holidays. Because without obviously a dollar amount, you can't determine a lot of other stuff with regards to it. So figure out what dollar amount that you're going to spend on Christmas. And, even if that's today, if you guys get this and you decide to do this today, which you guys will actually get it next Tuesday, figure out the dollar amount. $100, $300, $1,000, $2,000, $10,000 will help you figure out that budget right off the bat. So number one, figure out the dollar amount that you're going to spend. Because obviously if you don't, it becomes very easy to just spend what you have and what you don't have as far as credit cards go. Number 2 is figuring out who you're going to buy gifts for. So I would personally write out a list of all the people. Obviously, in our situation, we're married, we have kids, and so basically, it's basically what we did with all 5 of the kids. We basically sat down, had all their names out, and how much money we're going to allocate to each person. So once you figure out the dollar amount, you figure out who you're obviously, the people, you make a list of the people who you're going to actually make, or who you're going to give gifts to, and then from there, allocate how much money you're going to give each person. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would also suggest that you start early. I've always worked in retail, so I've always been one to like to finish my shopping before December. So I would suggest, as soon as the fall quarter hits, to start thinking of a budget. So that way, you give yourself time to obviously save if you need to, or just to buy the gifts. Because another thing is, I know a lot of people like to wait till Black Friday, but honestly, I was keeping up with all the sales this year just because there were a couple things that, I wanted to make sure we got for Black Friday. And some sales were better, pre-Black Friday than they were. So just keeping, when you're prepared and you're organized prior, and I think that it just makes it easier to kind of figure out what you're going to get and figure out the pricing and the sales. Because like Old Navy had 50% off way before Black Friday, which was a great sale.
Okay. And another thing that I didn't say, but previous to actually the amount, is figuring out how you're going to save the money for it. So obviously, if you don't have a budget, then most people, which I think is most Americans, they just sort of kind of wait till around that time span, October, November, December, whatever extra money that they have, they just start buying stuff. And what you find happens in that aspect is you may overspend way more than what it is that what you can afford to spend, or what you should be spending during this time span. So by making that budget, obviously figuring out a dollar amount that you can do, but how you're going to save that dollar amount to obviously be able to purchase the things that you want to. I think when figuring out your dollar amount and budgeting and saving, it's so important to budget that, because sometimes you may have in your head, I'm going to spend, let's say for instance, just around $800 this year, and you may do your budget and realize you only have $500. And so with regards to doing that, if you just go and start buying people stuff, what ends up happening is the later people on your list just gets the leftover scraps of what's going on, and you may in the beginning buy a bunch of expensive gifts that you don't even need.
And also, when you're not organized, I know budget too, but just organizing who you're going to get things for, you just get a whole bunch of stuff. I felt like I was even doing that slightly within our budget. And I'm like, I have a lot of more of this than this, or, So when you just are more organized with your budget and who you're spending it on, and, even kind of like the gift ideas, that keeps it all just together, and you're not overdoing it.
Right. So within a budget, let's say somebody's putting together a budget, and then they're realizing the dollar amount and so forth, and they're realizing maybe some people can't get gifts. Through a process of elimination, how do you think the steps, who gets taken off first, or who's obviously people you're going to obviously get gifts for in the beginning?
I think your main priority should be your children.
Right.
That should just be, that's what the holiday is for. I feel like adults, for me it was like my friends unfortunately were the first to go.
Right.
Just because, there were no parties, or it wasn't an obligation. I didn't always see them around the holidays, and they, I think, understood because I had children, or a child and then children and all that. And then secondly, I think it's like siblings probably are the second to go.
Oh, okay.
I think for the grandparents, I like to do something, rather it's like some picture or something, just because, we're not like an extravagant gift. You can literally go to Walmart and get go to the hour picture booth, and get some type of, because grandparents always like some type of picture. But they would be the next to go. And then like your spouse too, I think is also somebody who is give or take, depending on your finances.
I'm surprised you said that. Oh, no. You're always, when it comes to Christmas.
Right, not my birthday, not Mother's Day. I'm talking about Christmas. I feel like it's a holiday for your kids. So all of it should go towards them if that's all you have.
Right.
You know, when you have extra, then you can add more people to your list. But
okay.
The main focus should be them.
And then for somebody who doesn't have kids, who do you think is number one?
I mean, probably your spouse or significant other or
Okay.
your close friends
Okay.
or close family. But I think that there's this obligation that people feel like they have to get everyone they know
Right.
a gift. And to me, to be honest, I've never been like that where it's like it's just like my closest friends, you know, my siblings that I'm close to. So it doesn't have to be everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And also it doesn't have to be a large gift because sometimes it's just like the fact that you thought of them.
Right.
So rather it's a gift card or, you know, you made something or whatever, just to say, or even like, you know, like your kids' teachers.
Oh.
I think it's important to get them something because they're dealing with your kids, you know, all year, especially now, even though it's a virtual thing, I don't know, send them an email with a gift card, you know, gift cards can be virtual, so just let them know I appreciate you. I think that's important to send, you know, anybody in your life that's important to you.
Huh. I would have never even thought about teachers. I don't think I've ever given a teacher a gift. Never even thought about it. But the reality is they do a lot of work. They're with their kids a lot more than you as a parent.
Right.
And dealing with them. Obviously, a lot of you guys know because of COVID, when your kid was at home 24/7, we have a lot more appreciation for our teachers.
For sure.
And they should be paid more. And given a gift in general. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, with your kids, because we have kids, so let's talk about our kids and those of you guys who do have kids. Does age play a part in how many gifts that they get?
For sure, because even like, as we saw with us, it's like they might have the same budget, but the little guys want little toys.
Right.
So they're going to have more things, you know, because it's less expensive, whereas the older kids are going to want more expensive things. They're asking, older kids now want, I was seeing on my Facebook group, this girl, she was 12, she's asking for a Gucci belt, iPhone 12. I mean, just the stuff was just like, what? And the mom was like, this is crazy, but that's what they're wanting. They're wanting all these expensive things because they're seeing, you know, all their, not necessarily friends, but people on social media have these things, and so they think that's normal. So yeah, of course. I mean, so if you want, he only got his Nintendo Switch. That was his main gift. He probably just got a couple, you know, more things, whereas the babies at the time got tons of stuff because it was little, you know, little things.
Okay. And so with your kids, I mean, with our kid, obviously, you basically tell them to give you a list of things that they possibly want. Mm-hmm. So then that way, depending on your budget as a parent, you can sort of kind of, you know, figure out what it is that you can afford or what you can't afford and figure out something on that list. So how did you actually do it? Because the funny thing is I'm asking you the questions. The reality is I have nothing to do with getting the gifts for the most part or anything along those lines. Basically, you just make sure that the money's budgeted for it and you do a majority of the shopping for it. So how do you figure out, what do you do? How do you do it with Keone or with the kids per se? Because I'm always seeing them come in a room on their iPads with some commercial, some TV or something and saying, hey, I want this, hey, I want that. So how exactly do you do it?
So for me, even with the little guys, I pay attention to what they ask for several times. Because if they're just asking one time, it's because they saw the commercial. But like, for instance, Kyrie has been asking for these PJ Masks Wolfie toys. And he's been asking for that for months. So I know that has to be on the, like, that's a must.
One of the things he wants.
Right. Same thing like with Keone. He's been asking for a bike. He said it several times. So you got to make sure that's a must. Because Jamari, Black Panther, several times. So he's got to open that. You know, the other stuff is kind of like fluff. But your kids will tell you. You'll hear exactly what they really, really want based on what they say, how many times they've asked for it, you know. Oh, and also another thing that I do is as they do make a list, I just start adding stuff to different carts. And I wait to see if they go down. Because sometimes they'll have some deal and they won't announce it. You know, every so often I'll look at the cart. For instance, Keone was wanting these, like a, what is it called? A remote for his Switch. And so I put it in there. It was $60. And then Black Friday hit and it went all the way down to $29.99. So it's like stuff like that. You'll just have to pay attention. But if you put it all in the cart, you kind of can see if something goes on sale. And I usually do Walmart, Target, and Amazon. Don't come for me. I do shop at Amazon. I do try to keep it small business when I can, but Amazon I just do. and that also helps me. So then you go and you see, and you can also see if it starts to go up, because some toys become like the big ticket, popular toys.
Right.
So they'll start at $20, and the next thing you know, they're $60. So if you see a jump, you might want to get it sooner than later.
Okay. And see, and the only way that you're able to do that, obviously, is by budgeting. And
right.
the earlier you start budgeting, the better. Because we didn't do it this year till like October, but in my mind, it's just the money. We got this amount allocated for the kids. Let's break it up on how much it is. And typically the dollar amount is around the same for all the kids.
Yeah, just the twins usually kind of share the amount, just because there's two of them. They like the similar, a lot of things we're getting for them to kind of share and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, everyone gets the same amount. Of course, I mean, there's outside factors, godparents, and that might get other things. But in terms of what we do for our kids, yeah.
Okay. And so for the parents that are out there that can't afford, I know on our last podcast we mentioned Toys for Tots. What are some other ways or other things that a parent can do to get gifts for their kids, and reasonable gifts at reasonable prices?
Right. I always say you can go to Facebook Market. When Keone was little, I mean, he's 12, so it was more like Craigslist I would go on. But his first Christmas, I would say 80% of the stuff I got was hand-me-down toys. Just because, we know that especially babies and little kids, they play with toys for a short amount of time. A lot of times they're in great quality when they're done with them. So that's a good resource.
For a young kid.
For a young kid. I mean, it depends on what your kid wants. Like, Keone wants Nerf guns, so if I saw some Nerf guns on there, he's a little bit older, then I would get those. But yeah, for young kids especially, it's perfect for. There's also, buy nothing groups that are always giving away free items. And, sometimes, I mean, I know gotta sometimes put your pride aside and kind of ask. So if you go to a Facebook group, you don't have to put it out in the whole group, but you can just ask the admin. Do you know of any resources, anybody who's like sponsoring a family, and they can connect you behind the scenes.
Okay. Another thing that I've seen you do, I believe for their birthday, maybe around Christmas, is obviously you have family members that'll say, hey, what do your kid want for Christmas? That's another way. Obviously, everybody doesn't have family that have money to be able to pay and help out, or are even willing to do so.
Right.
But there's always that option as well.
Right. I mean, especially if they're asking, then you just kind of tell them, give them part of their list, so you don't have to get everything. And then they can help out in that way. Thankfully, they have great grandparents and godparents and all that who are very helpful. So, yeah, use your resources, especially, closed mouth doesn't get fed. Or, like for their birthday, for instance, they're 4 now, so we have to buy all the passes for all the places. So you just mentioned that. I mean, people may not do it, but you can say, instead of a gift, since I just got all this stuff for Christmas, can you contribute to a zoo pass? Can you contribute to SeaWorld pass? And you'd be surprised. People prefer that because that's like memories over and over and over again for that whole year, instead of just that one gift. That costs the same. Imagine if they, instead of paying $30, they give you $30 towards a $40 or $50 pass. That's very helpful.
Okay, that's smart. I didn't even think of that. It's just because, obviously I'm just a budget guy, the numbers. I think I'll probably always be that way.
And I'm resourceful, and I'm like always trying to figure out how can I get all the things with this little budget.
Right. Yeah, little budget, huh? Okay. And see, I'll probably, in the people who are listening on the YouTube, I'm going to probably span and give a view of the toys and the stuff that we got now and how she was able to budget and figure that out as well. But those are some ways that you can obviously save. And I think that the more prepared you are with regards to it, if we could start in January this year, I think we're going to start in January looking at what it is that we can do as far as the holidays come, so that way, they can have a few more gifts and be able to even donate some gifts as well.
Right. But also another thing that my mom always taught me is Christmas is not just about getting a whole bunch of things. Like, your birthday is more for gifts that you want. So I think that's important to also instill in your children, to just know, like, you're not going to get everything on your list. Even for your birthday, you probably won't, but definitely not for Christmas, because it's not about just, things that you can get. Another thing that I heard that I tried to do last year, I haven't and probably I guess this year in some ways, but to just stick to the 4 categories for your children: something that they want, something that they need, something to wear, and something to read.
Okay, let's slow that down. So you got 4 categories,
right?
And this is what you ask the kid?
Well, you don't ask them for all this. All you make sure to get that one thing that they want.
One thing they want. And this is for Christmas or?
For Christmas.
Okay.
And I know people who've done this, obviously, like I said, I've done it like last year and the year before. This year, it just popped in my head that I'm like, I have gotten them nothing to read, which is important, I think, just to kind of keep that, open and them interested in, reading books and all that. But something that they want. So something from that list. Now, mind you, it's not just, it could be one thing or it could be 4 things. You decide that. But you just stick to these 4 categories.
Okay.
So something that they want. That's going to be something from their list. Something that they need.
Something they need. Example.
A jacket. Like, for instance, Keone this morning was like, oh, I only have these 2 hoodies. And I'm like, yeah, we live in SoCal. He might need a jacket just for those really cold, mornings or nights.
Right.
So I started thinking, like, okay, that might be, you don't want to, I'm sure, I don't know if you've had a Christmas like this where it was like, everything was just like, clothes. No one wants just clothes, socks, underwear.
Right.
Because that's kind of like, this, But you do need those things. And so a lot of parents are like, well, this is the opportunity to give them these things. So you keep that as, part of the category. They might need underwear or whatever. And something they want, something they need, something to wear. And it could be the same. Sometimes those are the same. Something you need and wear. And then something to read, any type of book or book series or anything like that.
Okay, and it keeps it a little diversified.
Right.
And diversifying your portfolio.
Right, and it keeps it simple. Then you just kind of stick to those categories. And so you're not like getting them so many toys, so many underwear and socks.
That avoids
so many,
that.
Right.
Right. Okay. With your kids in general. Okay. Yeah, that's smart. That's smart. So I hope that those of you who are listening and watching gotten a little bit of value from us with regards to the holidays. $1 trillion, over $1 trillion America is going to spend. I hope you're not one of the people who are going debt for this holiday, buying gifts that don't matter. And next year, hopefully, from some of the stuff, the insight and the stuff that we gave you guys can prepare for this time in December again and make it the best that you can be.
Especially this year with COVID and all that, this is a great time to scale it back. So if you've overdone it every other year, people are going to understand, this year. So start a new tradition of just not overspending and make it be more about giving and loving on your family. As we know, life is so short. Many people have passed away this year. And so I think that it's just a good time to shift how we think about the holidays and how we spend and all that.
Right. It all starts with you as the parents. So whatever it is that you're doing, and try not to make a habit of going broke during these time spans. And like you said, this is a shift, a time to where you can actually readjust and get back on the right track. Let's not go in debt for Christmas. Okay, well, thank you guys for listening. As always, be great.
Bye-bye.